Trump is fighting bias. His current target is Google. Michael Cohen and Lanny Davis are confusing everyone as Cohen goes to prison. I'm Nicholas Zabladel, and this is the Weekly Update. Now, I'm experimenting on trying to stream my podcast live, and I'm hoping to do a weekly update next week. So hopefully I will get that live, and I will let you guys all know. But for now, I'm just going to record this and post it to YouTube. So we're going to jump right into Trump fighting Google, and James Barrett from the Daily Wire had an article where he discusses Google's response to Trump's claim of bias against him. And in Barrett's article, he has a couple of Trump's tweets, and Trump says, Google search results for, quote, Trump news shows only the viewing, reporting of fake news media. In other words, they have it rigged for me and others, so that almost all news and stories is bad. Fake CNN is prominent. Republican and conservative and fair media is shut out. Illegal, question mark. 96% of results on, quote, Trump news are from national left-wing media. Very dangerous. Google and others are suppressing voices of conservatives and hiding information and news that is good. They are controlling what we can and cannot see. This is a very serious situation, will be addressed. And he ends it with an exclamation point. So, Trump is very critical of all media sources, and, you know, the biggest target he's got is CNN. I mean, the fight between him and Jim Acosta and his administration has been going on pretty much since day one of his presidency, and Google was essentially not going to have any of it because they defended their algorithms. In Barrett's article, he says he has Google's response. Search is not used to set political agenda, and we don't bias our results toward any political ideology. Every year, we issue hundreds of improvements to our algorithms to ensure they surface high-quality content in response to user queries. We continually work to improve Google search, and we never rank search results to manipulate political sentiment. So, Trump decided to post a video regarding the State of the Union addresses, and Google had refuted it by saying that they never said anything about President Obama's his State of the Union addresses, so they didn't do that with President Trump's or either of their inaugural, excuse me. But Trump, like I said, he's gonna continue to fight all of, you know, pretty much mainstream media, you know, Google, Facebook, you know, for silencing conservatives, because there's been a big issue, especially like with YouTube, demonetizing conservative YouTube channels, taking down videos. You know, there was also Twitter banning essentially Alex Jones. You know, I'm not 100%, well, actually I don't even agree with most of what Alex Jones says, but still, you know, people have the right to, you know, say what they want. But I also understand that Twitter and YouTube and Google are private entities, so they can, you know, obviously say what they want. But, you know, for them to, you know, claim political neutrality, you know, they need to, I guess, level the playing field a little bit. But that's also not to say that President Trump also has issues, because he has a problem where a lot of the news about him, where it is negative, is actually warranted because of his, you know, it's of his own doing. He has said quite a bit of contradictory statements, particularly about the Robert Mueller investigation, where he's said things where, you know, the Cohen thing, well, particularly the meeting with the Russian lawyer, he didn't know anything about it, or, he's said things that have contradicted previous statements from other people, and, that's brought a lot of heat to him and his administration and campaign. So, I actually did just Google Trump news, and a lot of it has a lot of it is critical of President Trump, and the latest bit of news is obviously the Google versus Trump debacle. I mean, there's also quite a bit of, the DOJ with Sessions and one of the White House lawyers, Don McGahn, who is going to be stepping down, but that's a whole nother topic that I won't be talking about, because I personally believe there's a lot more important things to be getting to. But back to the media bias. I did discuss last week how Trump has fought with the media, particularly CNN's Jim Acosta, who I believe is an activist journalist. And while I do acknowledge that there is media on both sides, I believe that there has to be, more objective journalism, from sources. I mean, I believe that when someone reports something, they should say, who, what, when, where, but they shouldn't provide the why and, extrapolate and predict what's going to happen. When you provide news on something, it should pretty much be, what has happened, not what's going to happen or what you want to happen. And, obviously, Trump has called out CNN and other, news sources, whether it be the New York Times, Washington Post, MSNBC, the fake news. But, I mean, Fox News has, kind of shored up, President Trump's base, to play defense for him. And it's really interesting because I had looked into, I had never known this until, interestingly enough, Rush Limbaugh had pointed out Rod Rosenstein's announcement of the 12 Russian military officials who were going to be indicted by the Department of Justice. And Rosenstein says, and I quote, towards the end of the indictment, he says, quote, "There is no allegation in this indictment that any American citizen committed a crime. There is no allegation that the conspiracy altered the vote count or changed any election result." You can find that, the transcript of it on the Department of Justice website, but I had actually went to look at CNN and how they had reported it. And they actually showed up until the second, or they showed the first sentence of it saying that there is no allegation in this indictment that any American citizen committed a crime. Which, I mean, if you want to take it, I would say that would exonerate Trump and his campaign of any wrongdoing regarding Trump, the Russian collusion and influence in our election, because that's what Mueller had started his investigation into, and interestingly enough, it's evolved to Manafort and Michael Cohen, which I'll be getting to here shortly. But CNN had decided to extrapolate a little bit, and it seems like they totally ignored the second sentence, because they hypothesized that there might be American citizens being charged in the near future here for, this investigation, which, according to Rod Rosenstein, shouldn't happen. But segueing from the Trump versus media bias into the Mueller investigation, obviously we have Manafort being charged on 8 of 18 counts, or 10 of 18 counts, and there was one juror who held up the rest of the counts from being guilty verdicts. I honestly don't care about that, because that has nothing to do with President Trump. Michael Cohen, on the other hand, he had struck a plea deal with the charges that were brought against him. I've come to the conclusion that Russia did not use Trump in his campaign to influence the 2016 election. Like I said, Rod Rosenstein's press announcement made that abundantly clear. So Trump-Russia collusion is done. There shouldn't be any more to it. What we're on now is, did Trump lie about the knowledge of the meeting with his Trump and that Russian attorney? I don't remember her name. It's like Natalia Venetskaya or whatever. Another question I have is, did Michael Cohen and his lawyer Lanny Davis know about, have any knowledge on if Trump knew about the meeting or not? Because, that's been a big issue is, did they actually know if Trump had any knowledge of the meeting? Because Trump has said that he hasn't known, which, we have no, solid evidence if Trump knew about it or not. There are claims being made and people are agreeing with, one side or the other, depending on your political leaning. And then the final question is, did Trump use Michael Cohen to commit campaign finance violations? Because there's the whole issue of Michael Cohen paying off Stormy Daniels, because there have been claims that that would be a campaign finance violation, and people are saying that Trump couldn't use said hush money and non-disclosure agreements to influence the election, which I personally don't think. It depends. Okay, to me, it depends on where the money comes from, because, obviously there are campaign finance, or, there are campaign funds, and if Trump were to pull the money out of, said fund, then obviously it would be an issue. But, for as much money as Trump has, I highly doubt that that would be where it comes from. Vox had run an article detailing this whole issue with Michael Cohen, pleading guilty, and what has happened, and what this person thinks is going to happen, because the article is written by Andrew Propak, and interestingly enough, it to me seems like more of an opinion piece with information, facts sprinkled in. I'm trying to get to the top of the article here because I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just want to read the main parts of it. But Propak starts his article, "Did Michael Cohen and his lawyer Lanny Davis hoodwink the media? Late last month, in the midst of a federal investigation into Cohen, sources close to the former Trump lawyer and made a bombshell claim to CNN. They said that, according to Cohen, Donald Trump himself knew in advance about his son Don Jr.'s secret meeting with the Russian delegation during the 2016 campaign. These anonymous sources added that Cohen would be happy to tell special counsel Robert Mueller all about this, and other media outlets such as the Washington Post soon heard similar things from sources close to Cohen. Here's the problem. Davis has now admitted that he was one of these anonymous sources for multiple media outlets, but he's reversed himself, saying he's not certain that what he was telling the press about Cohen's Russia scandal knowledge was actually accurate. Now, Michael Cohen, obviously, he had pled guilty to those campaign finance violations, and talk show hosts like Mark Levin have said that, Michael Cohen hasn't pled guilty to a crime, and, they themselves have hypothesized, whether Michael Cohen was doing that to just prevent himself from spilling any more beans on Donald Trump, even though, he started, going out into the media with his lawyer Lanny Davis saying, like, this article saying, that Donald Trump knew in advance of the meeting, and that, he's lied about it. But, the article then continues, was Cohen just lying all along, pretending to have crucial Trump-Russia information when he has no such thing? Or is he lying now after it was pointed out to him that his previous sworn testimony to Congress was quite different from his new claims and could expose him to more criminal charges? Or has he simply decided to start giving his information to investigators rather than leaking it to the press? The only thing that's clear from Cohen is that the claims he and his team have been making have been inconsistent and unreliable. So, like I said, he's pled guilty, and, now, before the charges and before the raid into his New York office, he was pretty much gonna be the person to take a bullet for President Trump. But now, after, things have, I guess, gone south for Michael Cohen, he decided to start speaking, very favorably to, investigators about, things regarding Trump and the campaign and all sorts of that. Later down in the article, like I said, Cohen's office was raided. The article states all the way back on June 13th, ABC got word that Cohen was, quote, likely to cooperate with prosecutors. Days later, a Cohen friend leaked to CNN that if they want information on Trump, he's willing to give it. It seemed big, but there were inklings of another motivation at work. Some outlets heard that what Cohen really wanted was for Trump to pay his legal fees, with one source close to Cohen even telling the Washington Examiner that he could stonewall investigators for the right price. In early July, Cohen decided to even make more waves by hinting on the record to George Stephanopoulos that he was considering flipping if he said his main loyalty was to his family, not Trump. Stephanopoulos also asked Cohen a curiously specific question: whether Trump knew about the infamous Trump Tower meeting beforehand. Cohen conspicuously declined to answer. Soon afterward, Cohen hired Clinton ally and PR bulldog Lanny Davis, and the press began to report more tantalizing hints that Cohen had key Trump-Russia information. Two anonymous sources told CNN on July 9th that it would be dangerous for Trump if Cohen were to tell the truth about the Trump Tower meeting. So, Propak says, as I wrote at the time, there was reason to be deeply skeptical of Cohen's motivations in all of this. For one, it was deeply strange that Cohen was leaking what he supposedly knew to the press, rather than just telling prosecutors privately. It was almost as if he was trying to send a message to Trump, or even to shake down the president so he'd pay Cohen's pesky legal fees. Now, CNN had run the reports about the whole Cohen deal, and it led to, CNN receiving some backlash. In the CNN report, Cohen claims that Trump knew in advance about the June 2016 meeting, in which Russians were expected to offer his campaign dirt on Hillary Clinton. The next thing is that Cohen is willing to make that assertion to special counsel Robert Mueller. And finally, Cohen, quote, alleges that he was present, along with several others, when Trump was informed of the Russians' offer by Trump Jr. By Cohen's account, Trump approved going ahead with the meeting with the Russians, according to sources, end quote. Now, according to Vox here, the anonymous source was Lanny Davis himself, and Lanny Davis, there was backlash over that. So, this just seems to be a big debacle for Lanny Davis and Michael Cohen, because Cohen had said, like the article says previously, Cohen had said stuff under sworn testimony before Congress for one thing, and now he's saying another thing to the media. And later down in the article, Propak says, to hear Lanny Davis tell it, he's the GOAT. Quote, I should not be talking to reporters on background about something I'm not certain about, he told Fox News Tuesday. Quote, if I had a redo in life, I wouldn't have said anything about the subject, unquote. Yet, as the timeline above shows, Cohen's hints that he knew something about the Trump Tower meeting predated Davis's hiring. Furthermore, there were so many such hints over such a long period of time that it was surely no isolated mistake. It was evidently part of a deliberate strategy approved by Cohen to convince the media that he had bombshell Russia scandal information, true or not. So now, the rest of the article is pretty much just Propak, providing a little bit more information now, saying, Cohen is walking back, Davis is, trying to play damage control, just a little bit more background information. The end of the article essentially ties it back to the Mueller investigation, and the head of this part says, Cohen is of interest in the Mueller investigation, but it's not clear how central he is. Propak says, meanwhile, special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation has continued to move forward, far away from all of this Cohen drama. Though Mueller's team initially found the information that led to charges against Cohen, the special counsel and his boss, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, handed it off to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. The exact reasons why Rosenstein and or Mueller passed off this Cohen probe remain unclear. Perhaps they thought taxi medallions and sex scandal hush money were too far removed from Russia. Perhaps it was a question of resources. Perhaps they wanted to make it harder for Trump to retaliate by firing someone. Or perhaps they decided that Cohen just wasn't as important to the election interference investigation as, say, Paul Manafort or Roger Stone. However, we do know that Mueller has been investigating Cohen for Russia-related reasons, and that he continued to even do so after the Southern District in New York investigation began. And then he goes through Cohen's, the investigation into Cohen and Russia connections. Around March, Mueller's team questioned the Russian oligarch Viktor Veckelsberg at an airport. A company tied to Veckelsberg had paid Cohen at least $500,000 through a shell company, Essential Consultants, in 2017. In April, around the time of the FBI raids in Cohen's office, Mueller's team reportedly questioned a business associate of the Trump Organization about Cohen's involvement in business deals abroad. In June, Mueller interviewed a Ukrainian associate of Cohen's, Andriy Artemenko, before the grand jury. Artemenko told the Washington Post afterward that he realized that Cohen is a target of Mueller's. Finally, it says, two of the questions Mueller's team wanted to ask Trump, according to a leaked list related to Cohen. One is about Cohen's effort to make a deal to build Trump Tower, Moscow, during the 2016 campaign, and the other is about Cohen and Artemenko's Ukrainian peace proposal. Finally, the article ties into the Steele dossier and how there are several claims made against Cohen, and that Cohen and Davis both say that the dossier's claim about him are false. So, essentially, the article, like I said, it details Cohen's whole history with Trump and the time spent with the investigation into the Trump meeting with that Russian lawyer, and then, Cohen pleading guilty, him and Davis's appearances in the media, and the information that contradicts one another. But I do have a few problems with this piece, being that it is an opinion piece hiding as a, news source or news piece. But Andrew Propak, he says, he provides the reason why Cohen would leak to the press, and to be blunt, I quite frankly have no idea, as most people don't. Propak provides his reasons, claiming that it would either be a message to Trump or, to say that Trump would have to pay his legal bills. And obviously there is some credence to the legal bills thing. But Cohen, he said that he wouldn't take a pardon if Trump gave him one. So the message to Trump wouldn't necessarily be I think that would have more credence than the legal bill or the legal fees, because it doesn't seem like Cohen and Trump are, on the most, the nicest of terms. Next, the author is under the assumption that Cohen has information regarding the Trump-Russia meeting, since he on multiple occasions has hinted to such information, but then he later goes to contradict himself and say that, even though Cohen has hinted of said information, he might, may or may not have the information. So, he's guessing that Cohen or Davis have information regarding the meeting, but, then again, they might not. So it's an instance of Schrodinger's cat to me, because, no one really knows until, the proverbial box is opened. And, Cohen has kind of played, the information close to his chest. Like the article says, he went and was interviewed by George Stephanopoulos, and, he denied or, declined answering, the question on if Trump had knowledge of it. But then Lanny Davis, then proceeds later to overplay Cohen's hand by saying that Cohen had the info, and then, later just ended up walking it back. So who really knows what information Cohen really does have? And then obviously there is the whole, CNN publishing or running that article, and then the source being Lanny Davis, who then regrets, being the lone source, even though there are, I don't know if it was CNN or another source had said that they had other anonymous sources aside from Lanny Davis. The problem I have with this article is that Propak says regarding the Mueller investigation is the exact reasons why Rosenstein and or Mueller passed off the Cohen probe remain unclear. And while, yes, it does remain unclear to me, Propak, he thinks that, it's just not as important to Cohen or to Mueller, if Trump is, the holy grail, so to speak, of this investigation. This is just, a small fish in the big sea where they're trying to land President Trump. But that doesn't make any sense as to why, there was the big to-do about Paul Manafort, his, people were like, oh, we're gonna be getting Trump now. So, Manafort, he was charged and then later found guilty on multiple charges, and, people are saying that that's just one step in the impeachment direction, and, Cohen is just another step in the direction of impeachment. But, Propak here is saying there's really not a lot that, has to do with the Mueller investigation. And then also with the making it harder for Trump to fire people. I mean, the Southern District in New York is part of the Department of Justice, which is part of the executive branch, which is headed up by Jeff Sessions, which is also under President Trump. So President Trump is at the top of said food chain, and I mean, realistically, President Trump can't, fire the individual lawyers. He could fire Rod Rosenstein for not, firing the lawyers or attorneys investigating this. But then again, that would just, that would be probably the stupidest play that Trump would have in his playbook, because that would just make it look like President Trump's in the middle of a cover-up, and that's the last thing President Trump needs. I mean, there's already been discussions on what Trump's legal defense would be for this. he's a man whore, or he could just shut up and say, or not say anything and just let it ride out. And then obviously there's the Steele dossier. That has been, already discredited. I mean, obviously there has been, a range in truth to it, but a vast majority of it has been discredited by, multiple sources. So, I mean, we really can't say one way or the other if the Cohen claims are true or false. I mean, as it sits right now, we're just going to have to assume that it's false. And where we're sitting at right now, I mean, people are, like I said, people are already, beating the impeachment drum, trying to say that this is, just one more nail in President Trump's impeachment coffin, and we're not there yet. But if Michael Cohen obviously has information regarding the Trump-Russia meeting, or depending on where the money came from regarding President Trump's non-disclosure agreement with Stormy Daniels, who, interestingly enough, is pretty much not in the news anymore. Her lawyer, Michael Avenatti, is more in the news than she is, and it seems like now it looks like he's going to be making a push for the presidency in 2020, and honestly, he just needs to, shut up and, stick to Stormy Daniels' issue with the non-disclosure agreement. And if there is, a paper trail leading to campaign funds, then that would be a campaign finance violation, but we haven't seen any of that yet. I mean, non-disclosure agreements happen all the time, so that's not all that uncommon, but we really need to wait on what information will be coming out regarding Michael Cohen's payment to Stormy Daniels. I mean, I don't know everything that has been said about it. I've really haven't been following this all too closely. I mean, I did a little bit of looking into, today and yesterday about it, but it's a big mess because, like I said, there really isn't the Trump-Russia collusion narrative anymore. I mean, even if, they say that Trump knew about the meeting, I mean, they could try and snag him on a perjury charge or, obstruction of justice, but, that's depending on, if Trump knew about it, and we don't know if he knew about it. So, on that note, that's all I've got for today. Just a friendly reminder to like the weekly update on Facebook and follow me on Twitter at SaintNickZ7. I want you all to know through vigilance and strength we can create peace. And as St. Paul writes to the Corinthians, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Peace.